Welcome. Again, we're at FreedoniaCon 26. We're going to have the Earthdawn line discussion. With us today is, of course, Josh, Miss Debbie, and our own British Joel. Not sure it works that way. You count as our own because you're with us, but not because you're British.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I don't think you'll have any other British Joels. So.
Just you. You're our one and only British Joel. All right. Do you guys want to start with different projects you're working on? Like Josh, Europa. Maybe Joel and Debbie talk about the coalitions.
Sure, I'll go first. I am working on the book for Europa that will also cover a little bit about the Aras Sea coast around the city. Been working with Jessica, who's the freelancer that's been generating a good chunk of the word count on that so far. We've got all but a very little bit of the history chapter done and a very significant portion of the sort of geography tour of the city. We're actually on a revision pass on that, where we're really working on getting a strong voice in it, trying to give a little bit of personality and flavor to the book in order to kind of prevent it from being a little bit of a dry guide rather than, trying to get a little bit of that in character flavor that that some of the source books are well known for.
Sounds like it's going pretty well. We're moving along pretty far.
Yeah.
That's good.
Is there going to be a lot of ocean going type rules?
There's not much in the way of plans for that right now. I know that riverboat / airship rules are something that have long been discussed, but it's not something that I've been focusing a lot of attention on. And there may be a little bit of discussion about adventures dealing with aquatic and maritime type stuff, but probably not a lot of heavy rules in that regard.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right.
The biggest problem that I've always felt with that sort of thing is that you often end up with a situation where the airship or riverboat sort of combat situation ends up being something that ends up in a different scale. And so the player characters don't often have much opportunity to be involved or influence what's going on. And so you can kind of end up like to pull the Shadowrun term, you can end up in a Decker situation where your air sailor or your sky raider is the one that's kind of doing everything, and the other player characters are just kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs. I was kind of looking for a way to do a nice balance, or to try and see if there was a nice balance that you could strike that would allow other player characters to get involved in a more in-depth like mechanics for airship interactions. But I think perhaps the best way to go, rather than try and unify everything, because if you give all of the other players opportunities to be involved in various pieces, you end up with a much more complex system that ends up taking a lot of time. And while there are people that might enjoy that, it's not something that's going to be attractive to people who just kind of want to make a test or two and move on. So, like, I think there are different levels of play, different levels of mechanics involved there potentially in terms of how how much involvement people want to do. You know, you could very easily just have it be no real mechanics at all, just narrative. Like the scene is going to progress and, you know, maybe have the outcome influenced by things the player characters do during it. But I kind of went back, if you go back and you look at Terror in the Skies, for example, which is the first edition adventure that's got a big airship contingent to it. There's places in that where there are mechanics, but the mechanics don't, to me, seem to influence much of the way of the outcome of the adventure or the storyline. And that's, you know, why have mechanics if the mechanics aren't going to do anything? Just, you know, kind of the philosophy there.
It seems to me like all these ships are tough anyway, and you would have to batter at them for a long time to have an effect on them. So even if you did have good rules, it would still take a long time in game, I would think.
Yeah, and the way that I think, if I'm recalling correctly, that the original version of the airship rules from first edition worked is that one round of airship combat was actually like 6 rounds or, you know, some multiple of regular player character combat rounds. And the scaling was presumably that the damage that an airship would take would only be really affected by airship scale weapons, as opposed to like, oh, my elementalist is going to cast fireball on it. You know, where you end up in a situation that's reminiscent of mega damage in Rifts, where, you know, it doesn't matter how much regular damage you can do to something. If it's at that higher scale, nothing's going to happen. But I wasn't even necessarily thinking about combat damage and destroying ships, but the pursuit, for example, as well.
Oh, yeah.
Where,
That makes sense.
you know, like, oh, this airship kind of gets away, and yes, you can kind of make tests, but ultimately, like, it felt like the storyline was kind of scripted to end that you're going to have your big thing near the city so that the climax, like, you get this big kind of set piece thing. And there is a place for that, but it's something that people who might want a more influential mechanical system would not like, because again, they wouldn't feel that the mechanics would do anything.
Yeah.
So that is a long digression to the fact that I'm not expecting there to be any kind of heavy mechanical maritime stuff going on at the ship scale in that book.
Okay.
British, Joel, and Debbie, want to talk about yours?
We can, yeah. I can sort of segue from what Josh was just saying, because the thinking about how to mechanically handle ships in adventure situations has got into the book. So currently, the project I am being heavily involved with is and Debbie has as well, and a whole bunch of freelancers. Philip, who is present here, has been one of them, and is essentially the next plot book. It is entitled Unnatural Coalitions. It is a continuation of matters about Barsave, following the change of rulership in Iopus and the various shifts that took place in Empty Thrones. It is primarily concerned with the Ishkaret Tiskrang in an effort to prove themselves just as good as those pesky Denerastas. Fighting a war along the Serpent River, like the entire length of it. They are doing stuff everywhere. They are causing chaos, and there are a number of basically mostly location-based chapters that have plots going on in particular areas of the river, which are all linked by the Ishkarat being involved and stirring up chaos and trying to get control and influence across the entirety of Barsave, because as anyone knows, in Earthdawn, the Serpent River is the highway of the province and of that land, and if you control the serpent, you pretty much can control the rest. And it mostly concerns, the biggest part is the Ishkarat going to war with the Certis, who are dealing with all sorts of internal issues. There is a lot of chaos, and there are a lot of strange alliances popping up between different forces across the world, which is where the name comes from. And there's a decent amount of traveling around on ships and being involved in fights on ships. So I had to do some thinking about how we handle those and guidelines. And to the most part, the ship is a narrative device and a setting and a backdrop for the fight. Because we don't have the room or the time to fully develop a set of naval rules. And as Josh rightly says, they're of somewhat limited appeal, and some groups would use them lots, and some groups will use them not at all.
Maybe we could do a supplement or something for people who want to get into more heavy ship combat.
Oh, yeah, it's me being me. I have thoughts on the matter, but they're very much just thoughts that I'm not turning into another project, because, as Andy will say, I don't need more projects. Our intention with it is to, by the end of it, there are definite notable changes to some of the politics going on across Barsave, as some of those coalitions, while they might have started unnaturally and feel a bit odd, turn into proper alliances. So there may be a certain amount of not redrawing the map, as it were, but a different understanding of the political lines on the map in Barsave will not be the same as they were before. Yeah, and hopefully not too much for it to be a giant crater. Depends how well the PCs do.
I've got a question in relation to that, where this is a plot book. One of the things that I kind of liked about Empty Thrones was that while you could do each of the storylines together, like from beginning to end, maybe juggling up the middle chapters a little bit depending on where the group wanted to go and stuff, to do one big epic story. It was also possible that you could kind of ditch some of the stuff, and I'm just going to run the Duranis chapter, the one relating to the story that's going on there. Was it Duranis? Or the one relating to Kratos? I forget. Daichi, I think.
One,
actually. Yeah. Small port towns beginning with D. I don't know. I'm gonna get them all confused. Where you could just do that one. Yeah, and so that you don't need to do the entire thing as one big story. Each chapter more or less is able to stand on its own and be run as its own independent mini campaign.
I would say, pretty much most of it is runnable on its own. You can run the different sections as complete their own campaign as different things and go, oh, look, I've put 3 different campaigns, and we've all run different aspects of this function. I think, a couple of the chapters, the first chapter, which I did most of the writing for, which involves the beginnings of the conflict, very much sort of then should lead into, well, what happens next? And there is a final epilogue chapter that is very much dealing with the end of the conflict and something else, which is stuff we started to set up in Dance with the Serpent, as that plot line's coming to fruition, and those would sort of feel a little odd left on their own, but equally you could then go, well, we'll do this section, we could do the Kratos section, we could do the Servos River section, and different bits. There's multiple routes through it, and they sort of string together naturally, but most of the sections also stand on their own as a separate story of their own that is part of something bigger.
And the
Because that was
freelancers
always our intention, because I looked at MP Thrones and went, how do we do that? And that's the way to do it.
the freelancers are putting hooks to go to other chapters of the story as well. They're making an optional thing, or something to draw them to other chapters. So if the GM wanted to go from chapter to chapter, we made ways for that to happen.
Yeah. And we're also doing it as sort of an excuse, as we are visiting places, there's a decent sort of chance to do small updates on areas. So there's a whole stuff involving Certis. So there are some updates on the politics of House Certis and the Cliff City and some nearby settlements that pop up in that manner. So there's lots of little bits of updates that run through it. Where are we now? What's the plot going on here? So, even if it's sort of you're not running a lot of it, even if you only use bits of it, there's going to be bits that will be useful to most GMs, I would hope, across the game. There was something else I thought of, and it's just gone, but that's...
But each chapter is also standalone. So the GM will pick one chapter and run it for their campaign, and then do something else. It's pretty much that same style.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I know that James isn't here, but he's been hard at work on our latest dragon. Let's see. I might be able to get you guys a picture. Give me a second. Where would I have hidden
Yes,
that?
the newest,
Yeah.
the next one in our plush Dragons of Barsave
Earthroot.
series.
Yeah, I have a picture if you don't have one.
I had one he sent me, if I can find it. That's actually a short video of Earthroot on a turntable. He was playing with his light box. Let's see if I can find it. Well, of course not. That would be useful.
I'll go ahead and share the picture while you're looking for the video. This is a still of Earthroot, who will be debuting this year.
1 second. Putting your stream up so that they can see it. Oh, it's actually right here. It's in our internal. Hold on. All right. buttons. I put it in the main room.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
I like to imagine that dragons would really get into having big turntables they could stand on. It would probably look magnificent.
But I think it came out really well.
Yeah, we tried to make him very sinuous.
Yeah, the toughest part was figuring out the fabrics to use to kind of get the color design that we were hoping to. We were looking for trying to get a more like shimmery mother of pearl kind of thing, but the fabric options of that were rather limited, so we ended up just going with a more basic white.
There was a very tie-dye looking prototype.
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
liked.
Yeah, that did not go as well as we would have liked.
We ever do an Asante one, sort of getting that with a pink effect would be the right way to go, but definitely not Earthroot.
Yeah, it's tough to do that and still have a fabric that's going to be soft, which was one of the concerns. You can go with something that's more shimmery, but that ends up being a little bit
Scratchy.
like not as that's actually a very good word for it, is scratchy.
Yeah. It also just adding another thing that could be an irritant to some people, and it's never good. So,
I think we're looking forward to getting the rest of the LOBs finished. I know that that's hopefully upcoming.
Yeah, be nice to get those done. We've got the preliminary when the collected volume 3 is put together, that's going to have the other 2 adventures from the original Parliant Adventures book updated and included in there, similar to where we had the 2 that were in volume 2, whose names escape me now.
Blood Pact and something else.
Yeah, Blood Pact, and I know that one of the ones in the new one is Desire Box. The other one is the Higher Circle adventure from that book.
One of them's Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah.
Dead Man's Hand, I think, was in volume 2.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But regardless.
It's moving forward.
Yes.
I know we're
from a progress point
of
view, Natural Coalitions, we are working on and getting a lot of words in together as fast as we can, and heading towards, if not quite, publishable, certainly a completion of primary writing sort of stage.
And I know we've got...
I've even been doing some writing in between program events here.
Hinterlands, which is also still being worked on behind the scenes. Debbie, that's probably halfway, more than halfway at this point.
Somewhere it's range. A specialized setting with a strong lore, and it's got horror involvement in this setting, and the characters are going to be drawn into what is going on there. And we're also going to include in this box, it's going to be kind of like a starter box. So it's going to have lots of little extra accessories in it to, that somebody can use it to be introduced to Earthdawn in kind of a different way than the, main way that most of you are probably introduced.
Kind of going back to roots on it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll even have character sheets included and
Yeah. Yeah. We're
A
planning
true-
to have various circle character sheets and some other goodies.
like a true old school box set type of thing. I think that'll be really neat to do.
Mm-hmm.
See, so it's dragons, LOBs, the main books. Joel, I think after coalitions, we were working on
Yep.
something roundabout to
Yeah.
talk.
If I'm allowed to, yeah.
Are you going to quit between now and then?
What's that? Sorry,
Are you going to quit between now and when the book would be published? If
seems,
not, okay,
it
go talk.
seems unlikely.
Then you can
It
talk about
seems
it.
unlikely. Yeah, you're stuck with me now. The next book that I have plans to work on is currently my title for it is Words of Warning. If you remember the old, in its simplest statement, I'm looking at doing something that is an update of something like the Secret Societies of Barsave from first edition, with a book that covers lots of small organizations with both some fluff about them and some mechanics. And I intend to be a, if not fully comprehensive, a large and wide-ranging covering of various groups, both benign and helpful and nefarious, that are active in Barsave. I have trolled my knowledge, and I have a list of every group that I can, and we'll be looking at updating those and going, this is where they are in the current Barsave, and possibly adding a few new ones, because who doesn't need more twists, and trying my best to go, and here are some stat blocks for these groups, so that it can also act as a sort of politically active, that might be the wrong word, but a name giver's bestiary for GMs to use in games of various sorts.
So will there be names for these name givers?
Will that some of them be my names? Some of them will just be, here is a Ragok cultist. Here are, in fact, 2 or 3 Ragok cultists of different sorts that you can build encounters from. In some cases, we might have some named NPCs with stat blocks. I'm very open to seeing where we take with that. If we can, and I can get it to work, there are some groups where I would like to do things like going, here is a group, and here is the rules for the path for this group, because this is the sort of group that you're probably not going to fight, you might fight, but equally player characters might want to join and to be part of. So magical orders, strange things, if I can get it to work and not come across to Mary Sue superhero and overpowered, I might even try I've got ideas, and I've had ideas for a long time of how to update the light bearers. I need to get them to work properly, but I know lots of people go that they're a controversial one, but they were interesting and they add something, and I think I can get them to work in a way that doesn't mean that horrors stop being a threat to player characters, which was always the problem with them previously. And show where they are and how they fit into the setting in a way that is helpful. But if I can't get it to work mechanically, then I'm super happy with. They may just get covered in the fluff wise. But as I see from the chat, some people keep going, are you ever going to update the light bearers? And I take that as a challenge, and I have ideas. But equally, I've sort of read enough and spent enough time chatting with various people that go, I understand. And I've run them. I've run campaigns with light bearers in it, and boy, as a voice says from the other room, broken. Because Michelle, my other half, and my longtime player played a campaign with a couple of where the two of them became light bearers, and it was, oh look, that horror detonates, and that just removes the small H horror from the game. They're supposed to be scary. Light bearers are supposed to be good against them, but not game-breakingly so. But I think a lot of the ways the mechanics and models of power-ups work in 4th ed make it easier to write stuff that fits the mechanics and is useful and powerful, but without being game-breaking. And I remember picking up the Quester book when I was first picking up 4th ed 7 or 8 years ago, after having missed the initial launch of it, and went, I'm reading the Quester book and going, wait a second, this is how you do light bearers. And then Morgan and Josh's minds dropped the Paths book on me and went, oh, so I'm not the only person who sees this as a useful mechanic. That's how to do all sorts of things. So I'm not going to make any promise to go, there will be light bearers in it and you can play them, but if I can get it to work, they'll be covered, and there may be some other stuff in there. It's going to be looking at scope and a lot of there, and I can be too ambitious, so just fair warning, but equally, if any of you are interested in writing Earthdawn, it's also going to be a great book we're going to look for freelancers who want to write 2,000 words on a group. Oh, look, there's a nice, easy first project. Try it on for size. You might enjoy it.
All right.
Two things to add to that, Joel.
What's that? Okay,
I was going to say two things to add to that. One, at the end of the meeting at Gen Con where Morgan and I kind of hammered out and finalized the way that Quest Wars was going to work, I forget which one of us said it, but it was basically, oh, and this is a template that we can use for any kind of mystery cult / secret society kind of organization, and possibly even light bearers. So yeah, it was absolutely something that was on the radar at that point.
Yeah.
The other thing is, this may seem silly, but I want to mention it anyway. If you, that is to say Joel, who is looking at this book, have not gone through the episodes of my podcast where we went through the original Secret Societies book, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I talk off the top of my head with that might be worth mining.
Yeah, no, 100%. I will be going through that and pointing people in that direction, because I'm not as I have periodically going through bits and spurts where I catch up with the podcast, just because I listen to things in fits and starts. But you give me so many, like everything, brief writers love him here. Listen to that podcast gives me so many ideas of things I want to do.
I'm glad.
All right.
And it's just how I go. So yeah.
Unless there's any other projects you guys want to chit chat about, I say we open up for questions.
I just was going to have one little more preview. As Joel was saying, we're having the plot book or the event book, and we had an adventure book last year. So the plan is to have another adventure book next year. So that one is, all I'm going to say about that one is dragons are involved.
Oh, you're teasing us.
And I think from our discussions, to a certain degree, natural coalitions will be feeding straight in. I worked a lot and I did a lot of stuff on Dance with the Serpent last year. That has fed directly into natural coalitions, and it will smoothly flow into that adventure book as a sort of ongoing plot for you guys to follow and enjoy and terrorize your players with, I hope.
Well, I know I'm interested. And I mean, it's dragons. Who isn't? So if there's anybody with questions, you're allowed to unmute and ask. If you want to type them, just go ahead and type, and I'll keep an eye on the text channel. that's that's helpful, Andre. Sometimes we need a pointy stick. So, Joel,
And handy to wield it.
I don't know about that. So, Joel, I have a question. If not the light bringers,
Yep.
which secret society are you most curious or interested in updating?
Give me a second. I'll just go and find my list. Because I might have been planning this one out for a little while. And foolishly don't have the file open. Which one of these many am I most interested in?
While you're looking, Debbie, Josh, question was brought up. Do we have any plans to bring the Therans back to Barsave?
There is a notable Theron presence that will be part of the Yoruba book. In fact, for the tour of the city, quote unquote, the primary narrator is actually an attaché of the Theron embassy. And so that's actually where we're trying to get a lot of the voice in right now, because it's very interesting to present this city from the point of view of somebody who has that sort of imperialist attitude. And that also allows us to have some entertaining discussion in the sidebar comments where people take issue with what the Theron says about the city and the various districts within it. So that is something that should have some potential hooks for future Theron activity. Nothing's really been nailed down beyond that. I've always felt that the Therons would come back at some point, but would be more likely, at least early on, to not have it be the kind of military adventurism that we saw through First Edition and through Prelude to War and Barsave at War. The Theron military presence is more or less gone, but the Therons certainly have interest in rebuilding their strength and connections, but will probably start off doing that from a diplomatic and economic direction rather than, oh, they're going to sail a new fleet of airships in and start bombing people.
Yeah. And I'd add to the Theron statement, because I think I found the group I'd like to comment on. I had thoughts with the Therons having to deal. Losing a war has all sorts of political ramifications, and the offshoot from them, the Therons will definitely be having an effect on Barsave with a lot of the thoughts I have, but it's probably not going to be another invasion just yet.
Now,
there's other ways of doing it.
The Therons do have other provinces that we may look into sooner than come back to Barsave.
Yeah.
Now, the advantage that Yoruba has in that regard is that because it's kind of tucked all the way in the southeastern corner of Barsave, it didn't really get affected by the war in any notable way. And so the Theron embassy is still like physically there and has folks in it. You've got a bunch of independent city states like Travar, like Jairus, like Yoruba, that can each have their own relationship with the Therons. It's not like all of Barsave is necessarily unified against that, particularly, at least from my point of view, with Thrall having withdrawn and largely been the biggest, or one of the biggest powers pushing back against Theron encroachment. If they're not as involved in patrolling the hinterlands, then the Therons have more of an opportunity to rebuild those connections.
Yeah, which actually nicely segues to my answer to the question of what's the favourite group. The book intended title is Words of Warning. That is because my thought towards it is some people will be giving some words of warning to the King of Thrall and things you must know about, because some of the agents of Thrall are used to a more outward-looking monarchy and are looking to continue that agenda, but no longer under the command of the rulers of Thrall, because they're obviously not interested in backing them. So the transformation of the Eye of Thrall into something different and something actively political, as possibly an opposite to things like the Holders of Trust and clashing with other organizations like the Messengers from Mystic Paths. And I think I've got some interesting ideas with that, but it's going to be a broad book with a lot of things, and I keep looking at the listing of, but I like all these groups because I'm interested in all of them.
I was going to share what my favorite one is. If you're done, I'm sorry.
I think I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. I gotta say, in the old book, my favorite are the Songbirds. I'm a big Bloodwood fan, and I've always been interested in their society. So I'm interested in the Songbirds.
Yeah, they're on the list. They're there, and we've got some songbird related stuff popping up in the natural coalitions, and it will be continuing from that. So quite how their agenda changing and the general changing politics of Barsaven, things are shifting around. So lots of places' agendas will be shifting, and the Theron's changing approach will be affecting all these things. So
the one that I would be sort of most curious about would be the Life Rock Rebellion and what it changed into or what it became post-war.
Yeah, I have that one written down and covered under the Overland Trading Company, their financial wing, because I have thoughts of that and their alliance and the groups I have thoughts of within the Eyes of Thrall, and them all being things that worked to unite Barsave during the last war, and then that work falling by the wayside. Some people go, we like these agendas, we want to keep pursuing them, and spies going rogue and doing their own things for political reasons is an interesting game to play.
That's the thing about power. It's often something that folks are reluctant to get rid of once they have it.
Yeah. And if you dedicate yourself to a cause and a task, it's very easy to go, but I want to keep doing this because it's a good thing, not just for its original goal. And yeah, I'm glad to see you're throwing up groups that I've already got listed. So, so I haven't forgotten things.
Well, that's probably for the best. Let's see. Anybody else have a question?
I'm seeing a couple of comments about disciplines and variants of disciplines. I'm not sure they're quite the remit of that book, but there's something, having done a lot of work in 1879, where we have lots of variants of the professions, which aren't quite disciplines, but are as close as we've got. I'm a big fan of looking at things, and the work that was done in Vasgothia on the Ravager, I think that's the right word, the Sky Raider without the flying boat class, and the boatman is something I really want to see. I want to see more of, because it's nice there. And yeah, Charioteer as a variant on Cavalryman is a good fit with that. It kind of was done in 3rd edition in the China books, which the official name of it slips my mind, but Cathay, that's the one. Such an obvious. Yeah, I should have forgot that, but the Cathay books had that sort of thing in, and I think that's a really good starting point to play with. and something I'd look, and I keep looking and going, can I think of a new discipline? Can I think of an archetype that's strong enough to be a discipline in and of itself, or that isn't just a variant? And I could just build disciplines for fun mechanical reasons, but that's not a reason to do it. But good cultural reasons is a good reason to do it. So
the one sort of archetype that I don't see really explored in any kind of discipline space is one that is like more of an actual shape changer.
Yeah.
Like the Beastmaster is sort of the closest, where they have the claw shape and can kind of take on some aspects of animals, but nothing that's an actual, like what people would think of as like the classic sort of druid wild shape kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that might work, but
no,
like that's an archetype that I definitely could see people missing in the space of Earthdawn. That is kind of something that is present in the fantasy genre space.
Yeah, the one I sort of keep thinking, and I think this may be purely the deep influence of the D&D cartoon on me, having seen it at an impressionable age, is the sort of the thief acrobat, which is in itself a terrible concept, but the concept of a character that is about being able to move well and get over obstacles keeps striking me as something going. We haven't got a class that quite that. Scout covers it somewhat, other bits do bits of it, but it's one of the. But finding an actual proper, broad enough cultural concept that isn't a dancer or acrobat, which always seems a little niche to be a full discipline.
Yeah.
I've got the mechanics of it down. I just haven't found the culture of it yet. And an awful lot of things where they're very cultural start turning into really good options for paths. Because you can go, there's like so many things that work well that are, this is deeply cultural, but might have lots of different people and different ways of roles within it fit well in paths. And yeah, the paths mechanic, and this is great. We've already said this.
Yeah.
And you could get a lot more niche with something like that.
Let's see. Maybe MedJ under their long range desert paramilitary / police force aspect, or something with priest and embalmers. Shackleman specific discipline.
A priest as a path for Kriana, if the Kriana culture would work really well, and something Jackalman. I have a love of Jackalman. I've done some stuff. They are about, and they are something that I think about periodically.
Yeah, the thing about a priest type in Earthdawn is that you would really have to build out culturally / conceptually the way that religion and the relationship of religion is to the culture and such. Because it would be too easy to, oh, well, we're going to do a priest, and it essentially turns out like a D&D style cleric, which is not something that really works within the metaphysical realm of Earthdawn. So like, I think it's an interesting idea, but it would definitely require some sort of fluff build out and conceptual definition to avoid it just being, a weak recast of something from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I so when I'm thinking priest and Kriana, I'm thinking the priest as the record keeper and scholar within a culture. So actually, the religion is not as important. Then you could find ways of using the question mechanics to cover essentially the really fervently religious people, but the priest as the official and advisor to the monarchs and the keeper of law. So a sort of
ends up
similar element
kind of
to
being
what
like some overlap with like
Passions
Troubadour.
is. And Troubadour, yeah, and it's the sort of thing that work quite well as a. I'd like to, add this on top of my character because they're from the right culture and they're pursuing it, and the nature of thing is, our setting is such that you have power and interesting things going on, and tying yourselves to greater ideas can increase your power, and that's why you get more magic from it. And equally, I deeply believe a thing. This is a personal thought. I've run a load of stuff with various games involving paths, and a lot of paths will include people who are. You have the people who are on the paths who are all adepts, and then you have lots of people who are associated with it. The purifiers are not all fifth circle adepts who are on the path. A whole bunch of them are lower circle adepts who are training up and hoping to pass the tests and join that organization and get that power, and a bunch of them are non-adept lay followers of the concept, because the path is, and some paths aren't that. Some paths are literally just the people who are on the path are all of it.
Right.
I think, to read from my notes for words of warning, the Grim Legion, foot soldiers of the horror hunters, for want of a better word. They're groups of people who go out and hunt horrors. And some of them are adepts, some of them aren't. The ones who aren't adepts probably don't last all that long, and they're really dedicated, and mad amongst them progress and do well in life, well, to a certain degree of well in life, and probably end up on the horror hunter path. But the Grim Legion is a way for people of various sorts to be heading in that direction, and they're a bit more separate than some, but they're very much, I think I was saying in a description with some of the freelancers, think of them as their horror hunting biker gang, but that might just be all the leather and studs they go in for.
So I think there's another really interesting question that went by. Have you guys considered passions outside of our save and how passions interact with each other from different areas? Or is that all top secret? Quit asking.
It's not something that I've personally really given much thought to. I feel like getting into that area starts to tread into the realm of, well, in order to figure that out, we need to figure out more what the passions actually are and whether they're the same in different areas or whether they're different in different areas. And like that's a level of world building / metaphysics that I just haven't devoted any brain power to.
I have thought about that one for various bits and various projects, and I would characterize it as what I've written sounds suspiciously like a character in Earthdawn saying what Josh has just said. Because the subject is essentially what's called a passion is sort of something holding the cultural position of passions in Barsave, which are a very particular thing and a very odd thing. And in some places, if you read the things, there's something similar. In other places, like, say, Kriana, they might be the same, or they might be spirits that are very powerful that are holding that position culturally. And, we might call them gods or religions or what have you from our culture. The culture of Barsave calls that sort of thing passions. And it's one of those, the point with this is actually we don't know what's a passion. You can look at something and go, that's a passion, that's a spirit. Actually, that's a horror that people are worshipping. That's a metaphysical concept that people are very uncomfortable with it, so we anthropomorphized it, and there might be a version of it you can meet under that fiery sea. And people call these things passions, but an awful lot of the time people are wrong on that. And I've pretty much just, I've got some writings where somebody pretty much says that. But equally, you carry your own passions with you because they're personal, and passions work differently in every area. I think, as it's been said in previous years and discussions, the idea that adepthood isn't the only way of dealing with magic. There are other cultures in the rest of the world that deal with magic in different ways than Barsave does, and the Therans do, because they're very culturally interlinked. And it's very interesting to think about these things, and requires a lot of work and a lot of game design, and I'd love to do it, and I'd love to have the time and think it would sell, but how many people are setting games in this other area in a game where 50% of our books are always going to be about Barsave, and more than that, and how much effort we put into it. And so, yeah, it is something I think about, because I think about big world stuff, but equally detailed mechanics for the passions of the depths of Africa or Cathay or anywhere else in the world are probably not going to get a lot of attention until I really think it's a good idea. But I am thinking about it.
Debbie, did you have thoughts on the passions?
Yeah, I agree with Joel that they're probably perceived as something else in other areas. Would be my perception on that. And that there may be some unique ones in other areas as well that would not be called passions, would have a unique name.
Okay. I don't think we have time for any more questions. I really appreciate you guys being here. You want to say goodnight? And I'll click you out.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Good night.